Please welcome Anthony Newman.
Evening, everyone. There's probably far too much truth in this piece I'm about to do. Far too much probably than is actually healthy. So I'll leave it up to you to sort of work out by the end of it what's truth, what's not, and what it's all about. The last place we went anywhere together was here, 3 years ago. He was sat right there, where Tom's sitting, watching me recite. He was pretty frail then, being eaten up from the inside. And when you know you're going to lose someone, sometimes you accept it. Other times something inside refuses to, and that something makes you fight, wanting to prevent the inevitable. And that's the way I went, the fight. 3 years ago, I wouldn't have called myself a scientist. I doubt the scientific community would call me one now. But I had to do something, so I started to learn. I hit the books, I trawled the internet, I wrote to people, I called people. I was even cautioned for hassling a couple of professors. But I found no answers, so I widened my search. Alternative therapies, gurus, pilgrimages. Finally, I delved into the dark web. It's not just guns and pictures there. Anything can be got for a price. I looked at the standard drugs first, but there was nothing I couldn't already get or had dismissed as unsuitable. And my first search for alternative cures came back with over 40,000 results. It was a long process trying to identify any that may have some potential. But I eventually found someone selling a concoction he said could help my father. Now, I'm not daft. I know there are scams and cons galore out there, but I saw the doctor's reports. I saw the scans from these people, and it was clear there had been remissions, which in some cases were complete. The seller claimed his medicine was made from all natural ingredients, based on traditional Indian, Incan and Chinese recipes. He wouldn't tell me exactly what was in it, but I was desperate, so I took a chance. I scraped together the money, in bitcoins obviously, and sent it through, and then waited. So I waited, I continued researching, but as the days went by I started to worry. Had I been taken for a fool? It was a fair chunk of money I'd sent through. Finally, 3 weeks later, a parcel arrived, Peruvian stamps plastered over it. How it got through customs I'll never know, for when I opened it, there were 4 clear bags of white powder inside. I did wonder if I'd been sent something else by mistake. If it had been cocaine, I'd have actually been rich. It would have been worth far more than I actually paid for it. But it was the stuff he said. And I know, you're thinking, what could I possibly do where countless others have failed? But I believed in myself. I now know all about cell mutation, checkpoint inhibitors, proteins, pathways, blockers. Now it's time to learn some practical sciencing skills. I took samples from the bags and tested them. Microscopic analysis, chemical trace analysis, X-ray fluorescence. You can find better kit in my house than in QA hospital. Every test I repeated, every result I logged and compared until I was happy I had gleaned as much information as I could about the medicine. The powder itself was fine, but gritty, and in it I identified components such as toad skin, South American plants, even bone. Now, the bone was ground down too fine to be able to identify the source, but I'm pretty sure it's from a large cat, something like a jaguar. But the whole mixture had all sorts of amino acids and compounds in it. Happy that there was obviously nothing harmful about the mixture, I moved to live trials. My guinea pigs were actually 2 mice and 2 rats, all healthy specimens, but I wanted to check for any side effects, so I gave them 7 days of dosing, at the end of which they were still absolutely healthy. So much so that rather than dissect them, I actually released them back into the wild. But time was now pressing. It had been 9 months since we'd been here, and I did not know how much longer was left to him. So I decided to skip the next testing steps and went straight to human trials, but on me. I know there was nothing wrong with me, but I found the drug energising, though very hallucinogenic, and after a week my mind felt as if it was fizzing. Importantly, I had seen no ill effects and was preparing to carry on the trials on myself for another couple of weeks when the news came through. His cancer had spread. It had escaped his brain and was now rampaging through his body, and the time left to him was down to weeks. I had no choice. I had to start treating him myself, so I brought him home from the hospital. Did I really believe the stuff would work? I suppose, at best, I hoped it would slow things down, to give me time to find something that would actually cure him. And 8 times a day, I injected him with the stuff. And as I worked, I took samples of skin and tissue from him, looking for signs that his body was fighting back. Though the drug had made me feel alive, it put him into a stupor, leaving him little more than a mute ragdoll. I hoped this was a sign his body was fighting the tumours. But it wasn't. The tumours were winning, and I couldn't save him. It's another reason that makes this event so poignant for me. Exactly 2 years ago today, he slipped away. Everything I'd read, everything I'd learned, it had all been a waste of time. And as I started to unplug the tubes and wires from him, I finally realised. All that wasted time was time I should have spent with him. Instead of spending hours every day with my head in a book, I could have been finding out about his days at school, or how he met my mum. Instead of messing about with chemicals and machines, I could have taken him outside, and we could have laughed in the sea spray on the promenade. All that time we could have spent together, I wasted. And now I have nothing. Well, that's not quite true. Do you remember how I kept various skin and tissue samples back, trying to see if there were some parts of him that fought the cancer better than others? To keep busy, I tested all of the remaining samples before placing them in his coffin. I have a low-level OCD, so I wanted to complete the experiments just to be thorough. It turns out one of the samples was completely clear. I thought the tumours had got everywhere, but one part, just one part of him, was immune to them. I wish I'd tested the samples before he died. Maybe I could have found the key then that would have led to a cure. But there's another avenue open to me now. I've started researching a new science, and to be honest, it's looking quite promising. I can have my dad back. I can make up for the time I wasted, the time I should have spent with him, instead of being buried in books. The cloning vat is nearly finished. Next up is Charlotte Comley. Thank you.